Hello friends, and welcome to my today's lecture that is on the themes in Eugene O'Neill's Emperor Jones. I had already spoken about a few themes like racism, human and animal, and many more. Today I'll be talking about the remaining few themes. First is godliness, humanity, and fear. Now, friends, when Brutus crowns himself as an emperor of the Caribbean island, he elevates himself to the level of a god. His subjects, they are forced to worship and serve him without any question. And he himself conceptualizes himself as much superior to his subjects in every way. And as a final touch, we see that Jones plays into the natives' superstitions by telling them that he can only be killed by a silver bullet. Now, however, after the natives, they revolt against him, and Jones journeys through the forest to escape that uprising of the natives. He slowly gets rid of all the things that mark him as a powerful, as a godlike figure, and just because he must then accept his own humanity. Ultimately, he must face his own death, as all humans must. Now, when the audience first meets Jones, we see that he's been storming through the White Palace and is dressed in an ostentatious military uniform. Now, both the color of the palace and his uniform, they are intended to convey the fact that he's a very powerful figure and that he is being treated much above than any other ordinary man. Now, the myth surrounding his ability as to be killed only by a silver bullet, this also supports this facade, as it implies that he's not truly a human man and is instead something above and beyond humanity. Now, further, Jones sees the fact that he was able to convince the natives that this is true, as proof that he is truly superior to them, and that also suggests in turn that his godliness comes in part from his ability to hoodwink his subjects by using their beliefs to his advantage. But there is something that even Jones lacks, and that one thing what he lacks is that therefore one thing that sets him apart from the other humans as per the logic of the play is fear. Now, for example, though Brutus believes that an eventual native uprising that was inevitable, and he is entirely confident in his escape plan, which will allow him to escape unscathed, rich, and he'll be able to move on and continue living in luxury elsewhere. But with fear, or rather the lack of it, we may say, established as the one thing that separates him from his subjects. Now, the apparitions that the natives had sent to torment Jones in the forest through the night, that can also be seen as an attempt, first and foremost, to reintroduce that element of fear into Jones's understanding, and consequently to make him feel connected with his humanity. Now, when Jones first sets off in the jungle, we find that he's jaunty, cocky, and confident in his escape, and he's all prepared with his sturdy boots, his pistol loaded with 5 lead bullets and 1 silver bullet in case he needs to commit suicide to keep up the carriage with the natives, and even he has enough food stashed at the edge of the forest to last him through the night. Now, he believes that both his plans and his plan is too airtight, or rather, proof proof to fail, and that the natives, they are too dumb to be able to chase him successfully. The natives, on the other hand, however, they are prepared to return Jones to a human state by reintroducing that fear into his emotional vocabulary. At the same time, they've also found a way to reduce Jones, or rather get him back from his godlike state by treating him in a very pragmatic and a practical way, since Jones has convinced the natives that he can be killed only by a silver bullet. So they spend the night fabricating silver bullet to be used to kill Brutus Jones. Now we see that as Jones travels through the woods, he becomes progressively, one after the other, more disheveled, and he sheds his uniform, ending the play wearing little more than a loincloth. Now this is a physical representation of the loss of his sense of his own godliness and a return to its own humanity. Now in the end, his body is all that he has. Everything has been removed from the cover, you can say, moved from his body. Similarly, as he encounters the natives' apparitions, he becomes increasingly all the more fearful. He uses his lead bullets to destroy each apparition, and finally the silver bullet to destroy the crocodile god summoned by the witch doctor, which was a symbolic representation of the death of Jones's own sense of godliness. Now by the time Jones completes his circular journey in the forest and returns to the edge of the woods from where he had begun, he was mostly naked and without bullets, and he's truly human, terrified or fearing of what he's created in the natives, and scared for his own life. And the natives, they promptly take his life using their own silver bullets. Now another man that we see in Smithers, those Smithers mocks at the natives' use of silver bullets as ridiculous, because he was fully aware that Jones can absolutely be killed by any other lead bullet also, but there is a symbolic power that has been attached to it. Now in using the silver bullets to kill Jones, the natives, they simultaneously, they kill Jones the man, as well as the idea of Jones as a god. Now Jones's death then truly brings Jones down to the earth by asserting his humanity and mortality as inarguable facts. The fact of his death exemplifies the cost of believing oneself to be above death and other worldly consequences, and exposes his initial belief in his own godliness. Or we can say more broadly, the thought that anyone is superior to others in such a way as to act as a god over them, as the foolish and dangerous thought that it always was. Now another theme that Eugene O'Neill deals with in his play To the Emperor Jones is like conscience, trauma and the past. Now Brutus Jones is confident that he'll be able to navigate the forest of the island, that Caribbean island where he's been stranded, without a hitch. But once he enters the forest, he is visited by the hallucinations and the manifestations of his own compromised conscience. At first, we see that he hears the laughter of his formless fears. That is an emotional state that has taken on a physical form in the forest. Now, as he moves further into the darkness, he faces many visions of his traumatic past, of the men he killed, and then of the American slave trade. A major theme in the play is the ways that the past visits us in our solitude and the forms that manifestations of trauma and the past can take. Now, there are many more themes that O'Neill deals with in his play The Emperor Jones, though not on a very larger scale, or we cannot call them major ones, but there are a few minor ones also. I'll be talking about them in my next lecture. Till then, thank you.